I became a millionaire at 60, but what I found in my luxury home destroyed me. I became a millionaire at 60 years old. Let that sink in for a moment, because for most of my life, that sentence represented the ultimate goal, the finish line, the moment when everything would finally make sense and all the sacrifice would be worth it. Are you enjoying this story? Then consider supporting the channel by subscribing. Take a look. 94. 8% of the people who watch these videos are still not subscribed to the channel. If you're part of that group, take the opportunity to subscribe now. It's free, and you'll keep receiving amazing stories. And don't forget, at the end of the video, you'll find more stories like this one. I had spent 4 decades working relentlessly, saving obsessively, investing strategically, all building toward that magic number, that moment when I could finally say I had made it. I was wealthy, I was successful, I had won at life. And when it finally happened, when my accountant called me on a Tuesday afternoon to tell me that between my retirement accounts, my investments, and my liquid assets, my net worth had officially crossed the $1 million mark, I felt a surge of validation so powerful it almost brought me to tears. I had done it. The kid from nowhere had become a millionaire. Everything I had sacrificed, everything I had given up, it had all been worth it. Or so I thought. The very next week, I did something I had been fantasizing about for years. I bought my dream house. Not just any house, but the house, the one I had been picturing in my mind for decades, the physical manifestation of success, the proof that I had made it. 4,300 square feet of luxury in an upscale neighborhood, 5 bedrooms, 4.5 bathrooms, a gourmet kitchen with professional-grade appliances, a master suite with a spa bathroom and a walk-in closet bigger than my first apartment, a backyard with an infinity pool and a perfectly landscaped garden, a 3-car garage, even though I only had 1 car, complete home automation so I could control everything from my phone, security system, the works. It cost me $950,000, paid in cash, and the day I closed on it, I felt like I was finally living the life I was meant to live. I was 60 years old, a millionaire, and I owned my dream home. This was it. This was what I had been working toward my entire adult life. Moving day was on a Saturday. I didn't have much furniture, because I had been living in a small 1-bedroom rental for the past 15 years, the kind of place where you sleep and store your clothes, but don't really live, because you're never there, always at work, always grinding, always building toward the future. So moving was quick. A few pieces of basic furniture, some boxes of clothes and personal items, and by early afternoon everything was in the house. The movers left, and for the first time I was alone in my dream home. I stood in the massive entryway with its soaring 2-story ceiling and its crystal chandelier that cost more than I used to make in a month, and I decided to do a tour, to walk through every room, to savor this moment, to really feel the accomplishment of what I had achieved. I started in the living room, enormous and empty, my cheap couch looking pathetically small in the vast space. I walked through the dining room with its table for 8 that I had bought specifically for this house, even though I couldn't remember the last time I had dinner with another person. I toured the gourmet kitchen with its double ovens and its wine fridge, and its island big enough to prepare a feast, and I pictured for a moment making breakfast there, but the image was just me, alone, making eggs for one. I went upstairs, checked out each of the 5 bedrooms, all empty except for my bedroom with my bed, that suddenly seemed tiny and sad in that huge master suite. I stood in the doorways of the other bedrooms and tried to imagine what they would be used for, but my mind came up empty. I walked out to the backyard, looked at the beautiful pool shimmering in the afternoon sun, the comfortable lounge chairs arranged around it, the outdoor kitchen perfect for entertaining, and something started to crack inside me. And then I stopped. I stopped in the middle of that perfect backyard, surrounded by all this luxury that I had worked 40 years to afford, and I listened. Really listened. And what I heard destroyed me. Nothing. Absolute, complete, devastating silence. No sounds of life, no voices, no laughter, no music, no TV in the background, no footsteps, no doors closing, no water running, nothing. just silence. The silence of a house with only one person in it, the silence of a 4,000 square foot monument to loneliness, the silence of success without anyone to share it with. I walked back inside, and as I moved through those empty rooms, the reality of what I had done to myself hit me with a force that literally made my knees weak. I had to sit down on the floor in the hallway because I couldn't make it to furniture. There I was, sitting on the expensive hardwood floor of my dream home, and all I could think was, who is this for? Who am I sharing this with? Where is the wife who should be excitedly planning how to decorate these rooms? Where are the children who should be fighting over who gets which bedroom? Where are the grandchildren who should be jumping in that pool and running through that yard? Where is the family, the friends, the people who should be helping me celebrate this moment? And the answer, the devastating, irreversible answer, was nowhere. There was no one. I was completely, utterly alone. I had achieved my dream, and it was a nightmare. I sat there on that floor and I cried. 60 years old, a millionaire, sitting in my dream home crying like a child because I had finally understood what I had done. I had spent 40 years sacrificing everything for money, and now I had the money, and I had nothing else. Nothing that mattered, nothing real, nothing human. Just things. Expensive, luxurious, meaningless things in an empty house that echoed with my failure as a human being. Let me tell you how I got here, how a working-class kid with dreams of a better life turned into a 68-year-old millionaire living alone in a prison of his own making, dying slowly of health problems with no one who cares, preparing to spend his final years in an assisted living facility being cared for by paid strangers. Let me tell you, so maybe someone out there who's on the same path I was on will stop before they end up where I ended up. I grew up in rural Pennsylvania in the 1950s, the second of 5 children, in a family that struggled constantly with poverty. My father worked at a textile mill. My mother took in laundry and did alterations to make extra money. We lived in a cramped 3-bedroom house where I shared a room with my 3 brothers, where my sister slept in what was basically a closet, where there was never enough food or heat or space or money. My childhood memories are dominated by the stress of poverty, my parents fighting about bills, wearing clothes until they literally fell apart, going to bed hungry more nights than not, the constant anxiety that hung over our household like a dark cloud. I remember being maybe 7 or 8 years old and overhearing my parents late at night, my mother crying because she didn't know how we were going to pay rent, my father's voice tight with shame and anger because he couldn't provide for his family. That conversation, that sound of my mother crying and my father's impotent rage, it branded something into my soul. I promised myself that night that I would never, ever be poor, that I would do whatever it took to have money, to have security, to never have to worry about basic survival. That promise became my entire existence. In school, I became obsessed with grades and achievement because I understood early that education was my only way out. I wasn't naturally brilliant. I had to work hard for my grades, staying up late studying while my siblings slept, doing homework by candlelight when we couldn't afford to keep the electricity on, walking to the library after school to study because it was warmer there than home, and I could actually concentrate. I had no friends because I had no time for friends. While other kids played and socialized, I studied. I got a reputation as the weird, quiet kid who never talked to anyone, but I didn't care. I wasn't there to make friends. I was there to get good grades, to get scholarships, to get out. High school was more of the same intensity. I took every advanced class available, worked part-time jobs to save money for college, spent every free moment studying or working. There were girls who showed interest over the years, girls who tried to talk to me, who invited me to things, but I always said no. Not because I wasn't interested, I was a teenage boy, of course I was interested, but because I couldn't afford the distraction. Literally couldn't afford it. I was working toward a scholarship, toward college, toward escape from poverty, and anything that didn't serve that goal was a waste of time and energy I didn't have to waste. There was one girl in particular, Marie, who was persistent. She sat next to me in calculus senior year, was smart and pretty and nice, and she asked me out multiple times. The last time she asked, right before graduation, she was very direct. Look, I like you. I think you like me. Let's go to prom together, or just go get ice cream or something, just give me a chance. And I remember looking at her, this sweet girl who for some inexplicable reason wanted to spend time with me, and I remember very clearly thinking, she's a trap. If I say yes, if I let myself get distracted by romance and dating and all that teenage stuff, I'll lose focus, I'll slip up, I'll miss the scholarship. I'll end up stuck here in this town, working at the mill like my father, poor and miserable. So I said no. I told her I was too busy, that I couldn't afford distractions. The hurt on her face was obvious, but I pushed it away. I had made the smart choice, the strategic choice. I was wrong, but I wouldn't understand that for another 48 years. I got a full scholarship to Penn State, the first person in my family to go to college. My parents were proud but also confused. They didn't really understand the college world, couldn't help me navigate it. I arrived on campus at 18 with 2 suitcases of clothes and a desperate determination to succeed. College was supposed to be about discovery and growth and experiences, but for me it was just the next step in the plan. I majored in accounting because it was practical, because accountants made good money, because it was a clear path to financial security. I worked multiple part-time jobs, took maximum credit loads to graduate early, studied constantly. I lived in the cheapest housing available, ate ramen and peanut butter, spent nothing on entertainment or socializing. My roommates thought I was crazy, tried to get me to loosen up, to come to parties, to have some fun. But I was there for one reason only, to build the foundation for financial success. There were opportunities for romance in college, for connection, for building relationships. I ignored all of them. When the guys in my dorm talked about girls and dating, I tuned it out. When someone showed interest, I found reasons to avoid them. I told myself I'd have time for all that later, after I graduated, after I got a good job, after I achieved financial stability. First things first, money first, everything else later. That became my mantra, my organizing principle, the rule I lived by for the next 4 decades. I graduated in 3 years instead of 4, with honors, no debt, and job offers from several accounting firms. I chose the one in Philadelphia, with the best starting salary, $32,000 a year, which in 1974 felt like all the money in the world to someone who grew up with nothing. I moved to Philadelphia, rented a tiny studio apartment in a questionable neighborhood because it was cheap, and threw myself into work with the same single-minded intensity I had applied to school. The firm culture was demanding, long hours and high expectations, but I thrived in it because I had no life outside of work to balance. I worked 60, 70, 80 hours a week. I came in early, left late, took work home on weekends. I made myself indispensable, became the person partners relied on for their most important projects. I got promoted faster than my peers, got raises, got recognition. And I was completely alone. I had work acquaintances, people I interacted with professionally, but no real friends. I never went to happy hours or office parties. I never dated. I lived like a monk, my entire existence devoted to work and accumulating money. Every dollar I didn't absolutely need for survival, I saved and invested. I lived in that same tiny studio for 8 years because rent was cheap and I was never there anyway. I didn't own a TV, didn't have hobbies, didn't do anything for pleasure. My life was work, sleep, with occasional breaks to eat cheap food and manage my growing investment portfolio. My 20s and 30s passed in this manner, a blur of work and saving and investing and nothing else. I changed firms a few times, always for more money and better titles. I became a CPA, then got an MBA from a night program because it would increase my earning potential. By 35, I was making over $100,000 a year and had accumulated significant savings and investments. By 40, I was making $150,000 and my net worth was approaching $500,000. I was on track to be a millionaire by 50, maybe sooner. Everything was going according to plan, except for one small problem. I was miserable. Not obviously miserable. I kept myself too busy to think about it most of the time. But underneath the constant work, underneath the accumulation and the achievement, there was an emptiness, a void, a sense that something fundamental was missing. But I pushed those feelings down, told myself they were just the temporary discomfort of sacrifice, that once I hit my financial goals, once I had true security, then I could focus on other things. Then I could build a personal life. Then I could find someone, settle down, have the family life that had always been part of the vague later in my mind. My parents died within 2 years of each other when I was in my early 40s. I hadn't been home much, maybe once every 2 or 3 years, always for brief visits where I felt like a stranger in my own family. My siblings had stayed in Pennsylvania, had married local people, had kids, had built lives there. They didn't understand me, didn't understand my choices, thought I was weird for being so career-focused, for being single, for living like I did. When my father died, then my mother, I flew home for the funerals, stayed 2 days each, felt nothing much beyond a vague sadness, and flew back to my life. At my mother's funeral, my sister said something that stuck with me. "Mom was always worried about you, you know. She was proud of your success, but she thought you were lonely, thought you'd sacrificed too much. She wanted you to have a family, to have love in your life." I brushed it off, said I was fine, said everyone's path was different. But her words nagged at me. My 40s and 50s were more of the same, just with bigger numbers. I continued to climb professionally, eventually became CFO of a mid-sized manufacturing company, made over $200,000 a year, continued to save and invest aggressively. I bought my first property at 48, a small condo, paid cash. Are you enjoying this story? Then consider supporting the channel by subscribing. Take a look. 94.8% of the people who watch these videos are still not subscribed to the channel. If you're part of that group, take the opportunity to subscribe now. It's free and you'll keep receiving amazing stories. And don't forget, at the end of the video, you'll find more stories like this one. I drove a 10-year-old car because a car was just transportation, and spending money on a nice one was wasteful. I still lived like I was poor, even though my net worth was growing steadily. I told myself I was being smart, being strategic, building toward the future. The truth I wouldn't admit was that I didn't know how to live any other way. I had spent so long denying myself everything except work that I had forgotten how to want anything else. There were a few pathetic attempts at dating in my 50s. A colleague set me up with her friend and I went because I couldn't think of a good excuse not to. The date was excruciating. I didn't know how to make conversation about anything except work and money. I didn't know how to flirt or be charming. When the woman asked me about hobbies, I had to admit I didn't have any. When she asked what I did for fun, I didn't have an answer. The physical aspects of dating, the touching, the intimacy, the expectation of sex, it all terrified me. I was in my 50s, and I had never been intimate with anyone. I had no idea how to navigate any of it. The date ended early, we never spoke again, and I felt relieved. Dating seemed too complicated, too vulnerable, too much. It was easier to just accept that I was alone and focus on what I was good at, work and making money. I retired at 59 from the CFO position, not because I wanted to, but because the company was acquired and they were restructuring. I took a generous severance package that pushed my net worth over the $1 million mark, and suddenly, at 60, I was wealthy. A millionaire. I had achieved the goal that had driven me for 4 decades, and I had no idea what to do with myself. For the first time in my adult life, I didn't have to work. I could do whatever I wanted. The problem was, I didn't want anything. I didn't have hobbies or interests or passions outside of work. I didn't have friends to spend time with. I didn't have a partner or family. I just had money and time and no idea how to fill the time with anything meaningful. That's when I decided to buy the house. I had been living in that small condo, and I thought maybe the problem was my living situation. Maybe if I had the house I had always dreamed of, the physical manifestation of success, then I would feel fulfilled. Then the money would mean something. So I spent months looking at properties, finally found the perfect one, paid cash, and moved in. And you know what happened on that first day, that moment I described at the beginning? The moment I realized I had made a catastrophic mistake, had wasted my entire life chasing something that turned out to be worthless without someone to share it with. That was 8 years ago. I'm 68 now, and I'm still living in that house, still alone. The house hasn't gotten any less empty, any less silent. If anything, it's gotten worse. The contrast between the luxury of the surroundings and the poverty of my existence has become more stark, more painful. I wake up every morning in that huge master suite alone. I make breakfast in that gourmet kitchen, alone, usually just coffee and toast, because cooking for one person in a kitchen designed for entertaining feels absurd. I spend my days rattling around those empty rooms, trying to fill the time with activities that never quite fill the void. I've tried hobbies, tried volunteering, tried joining clubs and groups, but making real connections at 68 when you've spent your entire life avoiding connections is nearly impossible. People my age have established friend groups, have families, have decades of history with people. There's no room for a lonely old man who never learned how to be a friend. I tried dating again, more seriously this time. Joined online dating sites, went on dozens of dates over several years. Every single one was a disaster. Women my age can tell within minutes that something is fundamentally wrong with me, that I never developed the basic skills of relationship and intimacy, that I'm emotionally stunted in ways that are probably unfixable at this point. One woman, after our third date, was brutally honest. "You're a nice man and you've clearly been successful, but you don't know how to connect with people. You don't know how to be vulnerable, how to open up, how to build intimacy. And I don't think you can learn at this age. I'm sorry, but I need someone who knows how to be in a relationship." She was right. I don't know how. I never learned. I spent 68 years building walls around myself, telling myself I didn't need people. That money was enough, and now I'm trapped behind those walls with no way out. Yes, I'm still a virgin at 68 years old. I've never had sex, never made love, never experienced that most basic form of human intimacy. I've never kissed someone passionately. I've never held someone I loved while they slept. I've never woken up next to another person and felt that warmth, that connection, that sense of not being alone in the universe. I've never had any of the experiences that make us human, that connect us to each other, that give life meaning beyond just existing. I traded all of that for money. What a stupid, catastrophic trade. My health has declined significantly in the past few years. The stress and isolation of my life have taken their toll. I have high blood pressure that medication barely controls. I have heart disease, had a mild heart attack 2 years ago that landed me in the hospital for a week with no visitors because there's no one to visit me. I have diabetes, arthritis, the beginnings of kidney problems. My body is breaking down, which I suppose is what happens when you spend 70 years treating it like a machine that exists only to work and make money, rather than a vessel for experiencing life. My doctors have made it clear that I need to prepare for the reality that I won't be able to live independently much longer. I'm going to need assistance, someone to help with daily tasks, someone to monitor my health, someone to be there in case of emergency. Since I don't have family or friends who could or would provide that care, my only option is professional care. So I've been touring assisted living facilities, the expensive kind where wealthy people go to die with dignity and comfort, if not with love. I've chosen one, signed the contract, paid the substantial deposit. It's beautiful as such places go. Private apartment, gourmet meals, full medical staff, activities and amenities. Everything money can buy except what I actually need, which is people who care about me as a person, rather than as a paying resident. I'll move there within the next year, once my health declines to the point where living alone becomes dangerous. And I'll spend whatever time I have left there, surrounded by other lonely old people with money but no family, cared for by professional staff who are kind but indifferent, waiting to die in a nice room but completely alone. The house, this beautiful, luxurious, empty house that was supposed to represent the culmination of all my work, will be sold. The money from it, along with my remaining assets, will pay for the assisted living until I die, and whatever's left will go to charity because I have no one to leave it to. No children, no grandchildren, no close friends, no one who would even want my money or care that I'm gone. I'll die and be forgotten within days. The staff at the facility will clean out my room, will put another lonely old person in it, and that will be the end of me. 68 years of existence, 40 years of sacrifice and work, all building toward a net worth that ultimately means nothing because there's no one to share it with, no one who will remember me, no one who will care that I existed. Living in this house for 8 years has been a slow psychological torture. Every day I wake up to silence. Every day I move through these rooms that were designed for family, for entertaining, for life, and they're just empty monuments to my failure as a human being. The pool has never been used, not once in 8 years. The outdoor kitchen has never cooked a meal. The dining room table has never seated more than me alone with my laptop. The extra bedrooms have never housed guests because I don't have anyone to invite. The house that was supposed to make me happy has become my prison, a daily reminder of everything I sacrificed and lost. Sometimes I stand in different rooms and I imagine what could have been. I stand in the kitchen and imagine making breakfast for a wife, for children visiting with grandchildren. I stand by the pool and imagine grandkids playing in the water while I watch from a lounge chair, their laughter filling the air. I stand in the bedrooms and imagine them being used, being lived in, being part of a real home rather than an empty showcase. But these are hollow imaginings, fantasies of a life I'll never have because I made different choices, because I prioritized money over people for so long that by the time I had the money there were no people left. The cruelest irony is that I achieved everything I set out to achieve. I escaped poverty. I became wealthy. I bought the dream house. I won by every metric I established for myself. And in winning, I lost everything that actually matters. I look at my life and I see a perfect example of achieving the goal while missing the point. The goal was never really to be rich. The goal, which I couldn't articulate or even understand when I was young, was to feel secure, to feel valued, to feel like I mattered. I thought money would provide that. I thought if I just had enough money, I would feel safe and important and successful. But money doesn't provide any of those things. Connection provides those things. Love provides those things. Being part of other people's lives, being woven into a web of relationships and shared history and mutual care, that's what provides security and value and meaning. And I don't have any of that. I have money and the money is worthless. If I could go back, if I could talk to my 7-year-old self lying in bed listening to my parents fight about money, what would I say? I'd tell him that his fear is understandable, that wanting to escape poverty is natural and reasonable. But I'd tell him that money is a means, not an end, that the goal should be to have enough to live comfortably, to not worry about basic survival, but not to sacrifice everything else in pursuit of wealth. I'd tell him to work hard, yes, but to also say yes when Marie asks him to prom, to go to the parties sometimes, to let people in, to take the risk of being hurt because the alternative, spending 70 years protecting yourself from hurt by avoiding all connection, that's not actually protection. That's just a different kind of pain that lasts a lifetime. I'd tell him that the house, the dream house that seems so important, that represents success and achievement and escape from poverty, that house is just a building, just walls and floors and a roof. What makes a house a home is the people in it, the life that happens in it, the memories created in it. Without those things, it's just an expensive, empty box. And you can't buy those things. You can only build them, slowly, over time, through vulnerability and risk and genuine human connection. But I can't go back. I can't warn my younger self. I can't make different choices. All I can do is live with the consequences of the choices I made, which means living alone in this beautiful, terrible house for another year or so before moving to the assisted living facility to die alone in a different, beautiful, terrible room. All I can do is try to warn others who might be on the same path, who might be making the same mistakes, who might be prioritizing wealth over life and not realizing what they're trading away until it's too late. If you're reading this and you're young, if you're sacrificing relationships for career, if you're postponing life for financial goals, if you're telling yourself you'll get to the personal stuff later after you achieve professional success, please stop. Please reconsider. Yes, work hard. Yes, build financial security. Yes, don't be irresponsible. But don't do what I did. Don't make money your only goal. Don't sacrifice everything else in pursuit of wealth. Don't spend decades building walls around yourself and then wonder why you're alone. Say yes to the date. Go to the party. Let yourself be distracted by love. Take the risk of getting your heart broken. Build relationships even though they're messy and complicated. Invest in people with the same intensity you invest in your career. Have the courage to prioritize connection over accumulation, love over money, life over work. Because at the end, and the end comes faster than you think, the money won't matter. The house won't matter. The career achievements won't matter. What will matter is whether you loved and were loved, whether you built something real and human, whether you actually lived instead of just existing and accumulating. I'm 68 years old, a millionaire, living alone in my dream house that turned into a nightmare the moment I walked into it and realized I had no one to share it with. I'm dying slowly of diseases caused by a lifetime of stress and isolation. I'm preparing to spend my final years in an assisted living facility being cared for by strangers. And my greatest regret, the thing that keeps me awake at night, the thing that makes me cry sometimes in the silence of this empty house, is that I wasted my entire life chasing something worthless while letting everything valuable slip away. Don't make my mistake. Learn from my failure. Choose differently. Are you enjoying this story? Then consider supporting the channel by subscribing. Take a look. 94.8% of the people who watch these videos are still not subscribed to the channel. If you're part of that group, take the opportunity to subscribe now. It's free, and you'll keep receiving amazing stories. And don't forget, at the end of the video, you'll find more stories like this one. Choose people, choose life, choose connection before it's too late. Because it becomes too late faster than you think, and then you're old and alone and dying in a beautiful, expensive prison of your own making, and no amount of money can save you from the hell of that realization.